Gray, gray, telltale.
Check it.
In the quiet village of Onkwo, deep in the forest of southeastern Nigeria, Adaeze lived a life of isolation. She was the last of the Onwadike lineage, a family once revered but now feared. Adaeze was born under a shadow, a curse that clung to her like a second skin. Her hair was as black as the deepest night, and her eyes shimmered with the stormy waters of the Ogi River. But beauty can be a heavy burden. The elders said that any man who dared to love her would meet his doom. He would die an unfortunate death, or if death was merciful, he might lose his mind. And so, Adaeze grew up alone, her spirit wild and untamed. She ran around the village like a dog without an owner. No one dared to speak to her. The only help they offered was to leave leftover food by the dustbin so she could find something to eat. Though so free and wild, she was still caged by the whispers that followed her wherever she went. The villagers of Onkwo treated her like a ghost. They would murmur her name in hushed tones, their eyes darting away as if even looking at her might bring bad luck. Adaeze, they would say, the cursed one. But Adaeze was no ghost. She was flesh and blood, with a heart that beat fiercely, yearning for freedom, for a life the suffocating village could not offer her. She would often imagine herself living freely, far away from the whispers and troubles of the people. After years of living as a shadow in her father's land, a land that has now rejected her, Adaeze had grown accustomed to the loneliness, but it gnawed at her soul like a relentless beast. One evening, as the crimson moon hung low in the sky, Adaeze stood at the edge of the village, her heart heavy with resolve. She had decided to leave Onkwo, to escape the suffocating grip of her curse and seek a new life beyond the familiar hills. With a small bundle of belongings slung over her shoulder, she took one last look at the village that had been her prison and stepped into the unknown. The forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, their calls echoing through the trees like music in the night. Adaeze moved swiftly, her feet carrying her deeper into the wilderness. She had heard tales of a bustling city beyond the forest, a place where she could start anew, far from the whispers of curses and death. But as she walked, a strange sensation crept over her, a feeling of being watched. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes scanning the shadows. At first she saw nothing, but then a figure emerged from the darkness, tall and imposing, its presence both unsettling and magnetic. "Who are you?" Adaeze demanded, her voice trembling despite her efforts to sound brave. The man stepped into the moonlight, revealing a face so handsome it seemed almost otherworldly. His eyes, dark and piercing, held a glint of mischief as he smiled. "My name is Chike," he said, his voice smooth as silk, "and you, Adaeze, should not be wandering these woods alone." Adaeze's heart skipped a beat. How did he know her name? She took a step back, her instinct screaming at her to run. But something about him held her in place, a strange pull she could not explain. "I don't need your help," she said, her voice firmer now. "Leave me alone." Chike chuckled, a low melodious sound that sent shivers down her spine. "Oh, but you do need me, Adaeze. You see, I know your secrets, the curse that follows you like a shadow. And if you think you can escape it by running away, you are sorely mistaken." Adaeze's breath caught in her throat. She stared at him, her mind racing. Who was this man and how did he know about the curse? Before she could respond, Chike stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers. "From now on, you will not speak to anyone. You will not let anyone get close to you. If you do, I will reveal your secret to the world, and trust me, you don't want that." Adaeze fled from Chike, her heart pounding in her chest. She ran until her legs gave out, collapsing beneath a large tree. As she caught her breath, she noticed the bird perched on a branch above her. It was a magnificent creature, its feathers, a deep iridescent black, that shimmered in the moonlight. The bird tilted its head, its eyes locking onto hers with an almost human intelligence. Adaeze felt a strange sense of comfort in the bird's presence. It seemed to be watching over her, guiding her path as she continued her journey. She began to think of the bird as a friend, a silent companion in her solitude. Days turned into weeks, and Adaeze found herself relying on the bed more and more. It would lead her to food and water, and even one hour of danger. She began to speak to it, sharing her thoughts and fears. Though it never responded, it was a strange relationship, but one that brought her a sense of peace. As Adaeze ventured further from Nkwo, she encountered other travelers. Some were kind, offering her food and shelter. Others were less so, their intentions unclear. But whenever someone seemed to take an interest in her, the bird would intervene. One evening, a young man named Emeka approached Adaeze as she rested by a stream. He was handsome and charming, his smile warm and inviting. They began to talk, and for the first time in a long while, Adaeze felt a connection with someone. But just as Emeka leaned in to kiss her, the bird swooped down from the sky, its wings beating furiously. It screeched loudly, startling Emeka and causing him to stumble back. Adaeze looked at the bird, confused and frustrated. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice filled with anger. The bird simply stared at her, its eyes filled with an intensity that made her shiver. Emeka, shaken by the encounter, quickly made his excuses and left. Adaeze was left alone once more, her heart heavy with disappointment. The pattern repeated itself several times. Whenever Adaeze seemed to be forming a connection with someone, the bird would intervene, its actions becoming more aggressive each time. Adaeze began to resent the bird, though she couldn't bring herself to drive it away. One night, as Adaeze slept beneath the stars, she was awakened by the sound of rustling leaves. She sat up, her heart pounding as she saw a group of men approaching her. Their eyes were filled with malice, their intentions clear. Adaeze scrambled to her feet, her mind racing. She was outnumbered and outmatched. Just as the men closed in, the bird swooped down from the sky, its wings beating furiously. But this time, it didn't stop. The bird began to grow, its form shifting and changing until it was no longer a bird, but a man. Adaeze stared in shock as Chike stood before her, his eyes filled with a fierce determination. He moved with the speed and precision of a predator, disarming the men with ease. When they fled, Chike turned to Adaeze, his expression unreadable. "Are you hot?" he asked, his voice gentle now. Adaeze shook her head, her mind reeling. You were the bird?" she stammered, her voice filled with disbelief. Chike nodded, his eyes softening. "Yes, Adaeze, I've been watching over you, protecting you." Adaeze shook her head, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't name. At that moment, she realized the truth. She was attracted to this man. The realization terrified her, but it also filled her with a strange sense of peace. Chike seemed to sense her thoughts, his eyes softening. "Adaeze," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you." But before he could continue, a voice interrupted them. Well, isn't this touching?" They turned to a woman standing nearby, her eyes gleaming with malice. Adaeze recognized her instantly. It was Nneka, a woman from Nkwo who had always despised her. "You thought you could escape, didn't you?" Nneka sneered. "But the curse will always find you." Chike stepped forward, his expression dark. "Leave her alone, Nneka. This has gone on long enough." Nneka laughed a cold, hollow sound. "Or what? You kill me? You are just as much a prisoner of this curse as she is." Adaeze's mind reeled. What was Nneka talking about? She turned to Chike, her eyes pleading for answers. Chike sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Adaeze, I'm sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way." "Find out what?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Chike took a deep breath, his eyes filled with regret. "The curse, it wasn't placed on your family by a spirit. It was me. I did it to protect you." Adaeze stared at him, her world crumbling around her. "Why? Why would you do that?" Chike reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "Because I love you, Adaeze. I always have, and I couldn't bear the thought of anyone else having you." Adaeze stared at Chike, her eyes even with a mix of anger, fear, and confusion. The man who had been her silent protector, her mysterious stalker, and now her captor stood before her, his dark eyes piercing through her defenses. She wanted to run, to scream, to demand answers, but something about him held her in place, a magnetic pull she couldn't explain. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "Why won't you let me live my life?" What sort of obsession would make a man place a curse on a woman all in the name of love? Chike stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Because you don't understand, Daisy. This curse isn't just about you. It's about us. Our fates are bound together. If you leave me, you will die. And if I let you go, I will die too." Adaeze shook her head, her mind reeling. "What are you talking about? What do you mean bound together?" Chike's jaw tightened, and for the first time she saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. "The curse wasn't just placed on you. I placed it on the both of us long ago. The curse binds our souls together. If we are apart, the curse will consume us. If we are together, it will torment us. There is no escape, Adaeze. Not for you, and not for me." The plot thickens, and Adaeze realizes she is before a sick man who will bond himself to a woman in a curse he created because he loves her. This wasn't ordinary, it was an obsession. "It was a mistake," Chike interrupted as if hearing her thoughts. "I was tricked by the chief priest. I never knew the consequences of my request would turn into a curse bound by blood." Adaeze felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She wanted to deny his words, to call him a liar, but deep down, she knew he was telling the truth. The way he had always been there, watching over her, protecting her. It wasn't just obsession, it was also survival. "So what do you want from me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Chike's gaze softened, and he reached out to touch her cheek. His hand was warm, but his touch sent a shiver down her spine. "I want you to choose me. I want you to choose me, Adaeze. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you see what I see. That we are meant to be together. That this curse is not just a punishment, but a bond, and if we face it together, we can break it." Adaeze pulled away, her heart pounding. "You are asking me to trust you, to love you, but how can I, when all you've done is manipulate me, control me, and threaten me?" Chike's expression darkened, and for a moment she saw the raw, unbridled intensity of his emotions. "I did what I had to do to protect you, to protect us. But I'm not asking for your trust, Adaeze. I'm asking for your choice. Stay with me, and we will break the curse together. Leave me, and you will die. It's as simple as that." Adaeze had no choice but to stay with Chike. She hated him for it, but she couldn't deny the truth of his words. The curse was real, and it was killing her. She could feel it in her bones, a cold creeping darkness that grew stronger every time she tried to pull away from him. Chike led her to a secluded grove deep in the forest, where the air was thick with the scent of herbs and the hum of ancient magic. In the center of the grove stood a small altar, adorned with candles, feathers, and strange symbols carved into the earth. "This is where we will break the curse," Chike said, his voice slow and steady. "But it will require both of us. Our souls are bound, Adaeze. To cleanse the curse, we must cleanse ourselves." Adaeze hesitated, her heart racing. "What do we have to do?" Chike turned to her, his eyes filled with a mixture of determination and something else, something that made her breath catch in her throat. "We must face the truth of our bond. The curse thrives on fear, on doubt, on separation. To break it, we must embrace what ties us together. We must trust each other, even when it feels impossible." He held out his hand, and after a long moment, Adaeze took it. His grip was firm, grounding her as he led her to the altar. Together they knelt before it, their hands still clasped. Chike began to chant in a language Adaeze didn't understand, his voice slow and rhythmic. The air around them seemed to shimmer, and she felt a strange warmth spreading through her body. It was as if the curse itself was being drawn out of her, pulled into the light and burned away. But then the warmth turned to heat, and the heat turned to pain. Adaeze cried out, trying to pull away, but Chike held her fast. "Don't let go," he said, his voice strained. "This is the hardest part. The curse will fight back, but if we stay together, we can overcome it." Adaeze clenched her teeth, tears streaming down her face as the pain intensified. She wanted to let go, to run, But something inside her refused. She thought of all the times Chike had been there for her, even when she didn't realize it. She thought of the way he looked at her, as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered, and she realized, with a sudden startling clarity, that she didn't want to let go. "I choose you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the roar of the curse. "I choose us." The moment the words left her lips, the pain vanished, the air around them stilled, and the candles on the altar flickered out. For a moment there was only silence. Then Chike pulled her into his arms, his breath warm against her hair. "It's done," he said, his voice filled with relief. "The curse is broken." In the days that followed, Adaeze and Chike returned to Nkwo. The villagers whispered about the strange pair, but Adaeze no longer cared. She was free, not just from the curse, but from the fear that had ruled her life for so long. But freedom came with a price. She was born to Chike, not by a curse, but by something deeper, something real, and as much as she wanted to hate him, she couldn't. He had been her captor, her protector, and now her partner. One evening, as they stood together beneath the crimson moon, Adaeze turned to Chike. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked, her voice soft. Chike looked at her, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know this. I will choose you again every time, even if it meant living with the curse forever." Adaeze felt a lump form in her throat. She reached for his hand, placing her fingers through his. "Then I choose you too," she said, "not because I have to, but because I want to." And as they stood there, bathed in the light of the crimson moon, Adaeze realized that she had finally found her true home, not in a place, but in the heart of the man who had loved her enough to risk everything.